Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you enjoy the energy here this afternoon. And welcome to our panel for infrastructure for DeFi. When we talk about DeFi, we normally talk about the applications, we talk about years, we talk about user experience. But we all know that underneath all of it, that the infrastructure is the key players. And can it scale? Is it secure? Or it is enterprise ready? So we will see these patterns before with fintech or cloud computing. So the breakthrough moment not only comes from the products, but it matters a lot with the infrastructure that we're here today, that we're here to talk about the different challenge and predict the future of the infrastructure for DeFi. So first of all, before we start it officially, let me ask each of our panel to do a self-introduction, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Mike Siligadze. I'm one of the founders and CEO of EtherFi. EtherFi's mission is to create a DeFi bank, an end-to-end alternative to traditional banking. We're one of the larger DeFi protocols out there with about $11 billion in TVL. Lots of users, growing really fast, and we work really closely with the Scroll team.
Hello, I'm Sandy from Scroll, co-founder and CEO. Scroll's mission is to apply ZK to Ethereum scaling and also in application level layer development. We've built one of the first ZK EVM rollups and with the highest uptime and reliability. And we support a number of fantastic DeFi products, including EtherFi Cash. And we've just launched the first ZK stablecoin called USX.capital. So check it out.
Congrats. Hey guys, my name is Nikki, and thanks for hosting me, and thanks for being here. So I'm co-founder of Pelagos Network. Pelagos is an atomic cross-chain execution layer, and basically what it enables one to swap, trade or move the liquidity on, with many chains in one go, and it has all or nothing logic. Basically, it means that if during the steps, if a logic doesn't work or something doesn't work, it reverts, so nothing moves.
Thank you. And let me do a little short introduction of myself. So my name is Eva. I'm the CEO of Blockscout. And actually, before I started the job with Blockscout, I used to be in the fintech and the technology industry for about 50 years. My previous role was the CEO of Alipay UK. So now let's start the questions. We'll start from somewhere quick and easy. The first round of questions is actually for everyone to start with, and then I will ask each of you some special questions with round 2 and round 3. So the first question is quite straightforward, that from your perspective, what is the single biggest bottleneck in DeFi infrastructure today? And how are you going to solve this challenge from your own perspective? Maybe we'll start from
Sorry, I had a hard time hearing you. What was the biggest challenge you said?
Challenge or bottleneck with the DeFi infrastructure, yes.
Okay, yeah, so what's the biggest bottleneck for EtherFi? I mean, I would say the most important thing for us is to focus on building a product that users really love. So really that's the biggest challenge, is figuring out what our user needs are and then building a product that they can actually use day to day, and moving past sort of the DeFi Ponzi-nomics, token stuff in order to ensure that we focus on that core utility.
Got it. What do you think, Sandy?
One of our biggest challenge is, our goal is to support application builders and make sure they can be successful on Scroll, have all the bits and pieces they need. One of the blockers is that some of the infrastructure exists on different chains, and the human element in bringing everything together is currently a bottleneck.
Generally speaking, I would say the biggest challenge for us, and from the industry perspective, I would say the UX issue for users and the developers. So developers, we have to also understand that like in some cases, we expect them to utilize specific languages or specific VMs to build, and I think you should enable them to utilize whatever they're comfortable with. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And yeah, and generally speaking, like the other one that I would say is the deterministic execution.
Thank you very much for your feedback. And then for next round questions, I will make them more difficult. And then let's deep dive into each of your areas, especially with the product that you're building today. So as we know that scalability has been a very big challenge for DeFi. But the ecosystem grows that questions of security, of interoperability, and usability are just as critical as well. So this round, I will start the question with Sandy. So roll-ups are growing a lot of DeFi growth, but fragmentation across L2 and different chains create friction for users and developers. So from your perspective, how do we get the benefit of open experimental without end up with a walled garden ecosystem?
That's a great question. I think we're at a point where infra scalability is no longer a bottleneck with ETH L1 scaling and also the stage and status of ETH L2 scaling and the speed of which kind of ZK VMs are developing. We're very fast going to get to a stage where scaling is no longer an issue. And so finality is the next, and latency are the next kind of infra level bottleneck. And we will very soon, within a year or so, get to a stage where finality plus like superior wallet designs can create this like very interoperable experience. I think fundamentally, like Mike said, the most important thing is building products that users like, and the infra part will organize itself around that. So the products that kind of breaks the chasm and gets to mainstream will get to determine and pick the infra, and with bridges and I think with all the things that we're seeing in the infrastructure coming together, I don't think that will be a bottleneck within like 6 months or a year.
Thank you very much for your answer, Sandy. And the next one, I'm probably going to challenge Mike. So liquidity staking token has become the biggest building blocks in DeFi in the past couple of years. But most of the usage today is still work as collateral. So what are the new kinds of infrastructure would unlock the diverse use case for staked assets? And how would that change the role of liquidity staking in DeFi? Do you see any new use cases?
Yeah, so for us, liquid staking was our first product, and we used that to grow our user base in TVL in order to launch this kind of broader DeFi bank platform. In some ways, I would say our liquid staking product ended up being even more successful than we expected, in that it carries so much weight, and lots of people maybe still view us as focused on that. But really what we're focused on is this broader banking alternative that we're building. But I guess to answer your question specifically with respect to staking, biggest area we focus on is cross-chain expansion and getting more usage of the liquid staking product within DeFi. So getting, for example, EtherFi is now the first liquid staking product deployed on Plasma. So if you want to farm Plasma chain with ETH, EtherFi is your best bet. Similarly, we're working with a number of other new chains that are launching, and so we just want to make sure we're sort of at the forefront and we're included in every new major protocol, so that EtherFi is your best bet when it comes to DeFi.
Sounds very good. It seems something very exciting we can looking forward to. And by talking about cross-chain, my next question is about Nikkei. So we know that cross-chain UX has been very important for DeFi, but many users still feel there is a friction when they are working from different cross-chain tokens. So from your perspective, what do you think is going to be the key breakthrough that we need to make sure the multi-chain interaction is more visible to the users, easier to use?
I mean, I will also add some of my experience here. So generally speaking, as a user, when I try to move from one chain to the other or for every other user. You usually like utilize bridges, cross-chain messaging protocols. Sometimes there are solutions with intents and solvers. Generally speaking, when I bridge, like I say, okay, when it arrives, I'm like, oh, thanks God it arrived. So I don't know, like no matter how much I bridge, how many times I bridge, I always get the same feeling. And I think that's the complexity that needs to be removed. Because if you look at the traditional space or whatever, especially finance, you don't have such concepts. Everything is seamless. Everything is within one click. And that's basically what you should provide as a solution. You should enable a user actually to do a transaction in one click, not care what chain it is or whatever is running in the background as you use today your apps or whatever, when you don't think about these things, and let it happen. And I think we should move towards that. So, and it is happening. It is happening on the, we see like lots of solutions when it comes to account abstraction. And we see like also like intents and solvers also enabling that. But when it comes to intents and solvers, my personal view is that they introduce latency, and that's not super great for the high frequency trading. So, but we're getting there.
That sounds great. And then for the next round questions, let's look at the institutional adoption. I think one of the big trends that everyone can observe is that the traditional financial service companies, fintechs, banks, that they all get attracted to the DeFi game. So as a result, for them to get to the DeFi game, that they probably have to work with existing players like us. However, that there need to be some differentiations. There need to be some tailored changes for the enterprise to use the existing infrastructure. So this time, I will start the questions from Mike as the first one. So institutions want things like standardized reporting, clear liability, and strict risk control, which doesn't really exist in DeFi today. So from your perspective, how do you see that EtherFi will bridge the gap between DeFi native transparency and the kind of standards approach that the institutions used to? How can you help them to get into the DeFi game and solve their challenges?
Yeah, I think for institutions to adopt DeFi, on some level they have to get comfortable with DeFi. What we've seen in some cases is institutional players coming into DeFi and putting in the restrictions and controls and problems that exist within traditional finance and trying to sort of impose that onto DeFi, in which case it kind of becomes self-defeating because you don't really get any of the benefits of DeFi. And it really just becomes TradFi with extra steps. I think it is going to take time. It's going to require building out some tech to support institutional adoption. But for the most part, what we need to do is change perspectives and even the regulatory landscape to actually allow institutions to participate in DeFi, in the form of DeFi.
That sounds very good. And then the next one that I will ask, like Sandy probably. So rollups are moving very fast, but the enterprise usually need stability and standards before they can commit to it. So from your perspective, what needs to happen in the ecosystem for enterprise to feel that they are building on the solid ground? What does the future look like for you to get the enterprise onboarded with the platform?
I think TradFi enterprise typically operate cross-country and cross-border, and each country has slightly different regulations and standards anyways. So for any conglomerate to move fully on-chain, they typically move very, very slowly in one jurisdiction first because the compliance requirement that they start off with is so high. And that means once it hits a certain growth bottleneck, because blockchain is so global, so whatever jurisdiction you pick, you hit the ceiling relatively quickly. And that makes it very hard for them to compete with crypto native products, which is by nature day one global. and crypto native products tends to grow faster in some certain regions more than others, and there's a game of like anti-regulatory capture in most cases. You see that with Tether in the first instance, and then and then Binance. The examples are endless. So I think essentially the way the law of the jungle is that the standards will be play out and decided by the hands of the consumer. And in terms of infra standard, part of it is decided by like longevity of the project and lots of other aspects that comes with like BD and marketing and product integrity and also being able to kind of advocate and align enough parties. I think these are all things that will play into a standard.
Sounds very good. And then the last question is for Nikki. So as institutions start exploring DeFi, do you think that infrastructure of multi-chain world should make it invisible to the institutions or make it more transparency so they can have the full control? Which part do you feel that works better?
I mean, generally speaking, the experience for the institutions should be seamless. So, because in the end of the day, they offer these solutions to their end users and clients. That's one thing you need to take into account, and they should ensure that it is safe, it is quite transparent, and also one key thing, it's certain. So the outcome's uncertain. They cannot be the ones guessing like gas fees or whatever. Like they should know all these inputs, and it has to have a certain audit trail because in the end of the day, like, you know, there are compliance check, the regulator might check, so they should be able to show that. And when it comes to institutions, I mean, I will probably repeat the same thing that Sandy and Mike mentioned. They are much more conservative, right? So they take their time, they're slow to move. And when they start with working with you, like generally speaking, they start like with RFIs, RFPs, then you do workshops. All that process can take easily up to 6 months. It doesn't go very fast. And then like in the actually optimistic case, it's 6 months. It can take longer at times and so on. And then like, yeah, we see a lot of this announcement, oh, like, for example, this bank adopted this chain, or the other institution adopted another chain or whatever. The thing is that like they actually adopt it as a proof of concept. So for a small business unit, they say like, okay, let's try it out and see how it works. My bet is that they're trying it out and checking how it works just to build it some sort of a solution themselves.
Yes, actually, I can't agree more. So basically, for example, that with Blockscout, because we are the #1 provider for the blockchain explorer, so we actually had this experience with lots of banks as well. So when they start the journey, get into the blockchain, that they probably start to, with inside of their organization, they have this innovation department who want to try different open source softwares that they will understand this game before they really fully invest into this game. So as a result, lots of different banks, for example, HSBC Lab actually use our open source software to try to understand how to play this. But again, that after their initial innovation, it probably take a while for them to really decide which way to go and what is the area that they should focus on for the future growth. So we'll see exactly the same case. So far we talk about the challenge that the industry is facing today. We talk a little bit about the near future when the institutions coming over to this area. For the next round of questions, actually, it is for every panelist. So let's look at a long future. Let's say 5 years later, in 2030, what is your prediction of how the industry looks like for DeFi in 5 years' time? And what kind of role that each of your companies is going to play in that 5 years future? Feel free to start. So this is a question for everyone.
Generally speaking, 5 years in crypto is like 50 years in real life. So,
it is.
Yes. I know, like, I really hope that we manage to actually be accepted as a serious business to start with. You know, like when people actually like talk about crypto, they don't really associate it with scam, and it's an accepted industry, right? Not just amongst us, which is like a very small community, I'd say, but also amongst bigger players, institutions, governments. You know, actually what we're building today, what we're trying to achieve is achieved on a more global scale. And also, one of the elephants in the room, I believe, are the regulators. It's the regulation. So, and I do hope that, the regulation becomes more homogeneous when it comes to the acceptance. And I think we're moving there, and I hope to see that. And yeah, I just hope that also the projects become one of those boring businesses. You know, they're focused on revenue generating. They are focused on actually delivering value to the customers.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more than that. So.
Sounds very exciting future for us. Yeah. What do you think, Sandy? What does the future look like for you?
I think most people are, outside of crypto, are very focused on the impact of AI for the next 5 to 10 years, but don't realize how certain it is that crypto will become completely prevalent in the next 3 to 5 years. And the amount of social shift and economic shifts and job displacement that will happen in the finance industry is going to be absolutely huge. And so I think the pendulum will swing back to crypto from AI at a certain point. These kind of things tend to swing back and forth, and I think some people say stablecoin is the ChatGPT moment. But I think there will be lots and lots of similar types of movements that happens for different types of products, and so very exciting times ahead.
Actually, Sandy, I really like your ideas about AI. So again, that what we can see in the industry in the past 3 years, I think crypto AI probably the only forces still driving this forward. So same as you do that, we at Blockscout actually we've done a lot of work with AI as well. So last week in China, we actually just announced a strategic partnership with Alibaba Group on the AI because they have this famous large language model called Qwen. So Blockscout as an explorer, that we have lots of data that we are working with different LMs to make sure that the information with other areas, with the crypto areas, will be fed into the different language models, so we will not be left behind in the future. Yeah. What do you think? Mike? What is your exciting future look like? Can we be part of it?
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that crypto becomes sufficiently embedded in people's daily financial lives that they no longer think of it as something special, I guess. In other words, it's just something they use every day without really having to think about it. Today, crypto is very insular and self-contained, which is sufficient for mostly a casino type environment. But once it actually becomes plugged into kind of broader infrastructure, I think that it'll actually start growing more organically and grow beyond the couple million gamblers that it currently consists of.
That sounds very good. So actually, I have one last question for everyone here. So I think you all have very famous products that I think most people in the state probably know about your product already. But do you mind to have one sentence to summarize what your project is doing, how you can benefit the community, and more importantly, for people who are sitting here, what is the way that they can work with your project? Maybe we'll start from Mike here this time.
Sure. If you want to try out EtherFi, go to ether.fi. You can sign up for an account. You can get a crypto credit card and start using it right here at Token. According to our data, actually about 5% of all attendees at Token are using the EtherFi product. It's pretty exciting. Hopefully next year it'll be 50% though. So yeah, just go to the site, try it out, and enjoy.
I think for any builders, feel free to check out our chain and the wonderful projects that are building in our ecosystem, including EtherFi.
Sure, since we're a fairly new project, so if you would like to know more about Pelagos, go to pelagos.network, just check out the docs, and if you want to actually follow us on Twitter, and feel free, or on X, sorry, and feel free to actually send us a message or something like that. We're very, we usually reply all the time, and we check all the inboxes.
Thank you. And I will say that from Blockscout perspective, for everyone who's sitting here, that if you are building blockchain, please come to us. That we have the best blockchain explorer. If you are a developer, actually, we have plenty of APIs that can give you access to different on-chain data. So let's work together. Again, thank you very much for the group of great panelists. It's a pleasure to talk with all of you.
Thank you, Evita, for moderation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.